All right, everyone, thank you for being patient. We're going to go ahead and call this to order. Roll call, please, Beth.
Eric Andreessen.
Present.
Randy Brown.
Present.
Devin McCumber.
Here.
Greg Wagner.
Here.
Caitlin Washburn. Alternate Charles Thomas.
All right. Next, we'll all rise and please say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so tonight we are here for the public hearing for the proposed zoning ordinance. There's going to be a couple ground rules we're going to set as a public body just to keep things orderly. I'm going to let Jeff, our attorney, give us a recommendation on that.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Appreciate your attendance here on a Friday evening. As the chairman said, we're here to have a public hearing on the proposed zoning ordinance. As part of this, we are going to invite you, to the extent you want, to provide us with feedback, comments, your testimony, if you will, about what you like, what you don't like about the ordinance, so that then this zoning board can go back, and if any revisions are needed or if there need to be any tweaks, they can do that. I know that this board has worked, put in a lot of hours. They've looked at a lot of different ordinances around the state, different provisions to try and make sure they've come up with a good and a fair ordinance. So they have worked hard on that. But this is that time where it's time for the community to provide feedback. We'd ask that everybody remain civil. We know some of these zoning issues can be hot topics. We'd like to, if you will, try and keep your remarks to about 5 minutes or so. We'll kind of give you a reminder on that. We'd ask that you not be repetitive, although, if you are, it's fine. You want to make another point, but we want to make sure everybody's got an opportunity to speak tonight and to give their testimony to the zoning board. And with that, I would turn it back over to you. And
First things first, just for our secretaries to be able to write down your names before you speak, if you would pronounce your name, give them a chance to write it down so we have a record of it. I also want to announce that this is being audio and video recorded. Other than that, we're here to hear what everyone has to say. Is there anyone interested?
Yes. My name is David Boyd, and my family and I have lived here in the Murdock area since 1965. My wife and I are currently located about 2.5 to 3 miles from the nearest proposed wind turbine site, so I'm not facing immediate issues, with them, but I am concerned that all participants and non-participants' rights are protected. I'd like to state that one of my major concerns with having large industrial energy come into our township to develop a business is how they're going to leave the area after they leave their business, when their business has run its course. I can think of 4 or 5 examples currently located in our township or area where companies come in with the honest intention of making a profit, and have left the residents and taxpayers to put up with, live beside, or pay for the lack of responsibility. Railroad beds. I just recently talked to a farmer, who is still finding tie plates, anchors, spikes, rocks, and dealing with lower yields because the topsoil wasn't replaced appropriately. Elevators sold off and abandoned. Coal mines, slag piles still not dealt with. Lakes and ponds filled with polluted water and industrial waste, which is an ongoing problem. Land subsidence as evident in damaged roads and lost farm ground. No one is recontact. It's still over there as a shell and was cleaned up recently by the EPA Superfund at the taxpayers' expense. I actually heard the promise of money in reserve to turn that location back into a cornfield, but that money disappeared in the shuffle of ownership ownership or renaming. So we need a good, solid ordinance such as the one that's been developed to protect our rights and our investments. And that's one of the statements that I've got. I can wait for a couple of others that I've got that was passed to me if you'd like.
Sure thing, thank you.
Mhm.
Next, yes, sir.
My name is Kurt Logan. I have a couple of questions on the residential side. First, the maximum building height of 35 feet. If somebody would want to come in and try to put up an older type farmhouse, 2-story basement, that's kind of on that borderline and it could exceed that. Could the board just look into that? If there might be exceptions to be able to be made.
There,
Also,
sure.
one other question. Farmers are selling their ground, or actually people are selling their ground because they're retiring and there's no other family. The lot width of being 250 feet, there could be a little sliver on somebody's land that had a house, but they don't want to, they can't farm it because there was a house, so we could maybe look at that. So
Okay,
those are my 2 things.
thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, Alan.
Alan Bender, do you have a minimum requirement, minimum square footage that can be built, that does not require a permit?
There is not one in the code currently. Someone else previously mentioned a similar item, and we can consider to put it in. Specifically was addressing, say, someone wants to build a shed, and it's obviously less than 1,000 square feet or something like that. So is it required? We base the ordinance, a lot of it off of Boone County, and for them, they do have a requirement for even a shed. So for like a shed, just a backyard shed. So they have that requirement. But yeah, we can look into it and put it in there. So say if you're building something 500 square feet, you don't require.
My reference would be for a well house.
Sure.
And they're not gonna build them any bigger than they have to build them because
Right.
then they've gotta keep them warm. So that, and we're farming, there's farmhouses.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm sure there's probably a lot of them that have a well house. Anything that's probably newer, they probably moved it into the house, but the older stuff, it's
Yep.
gonna have a well house, I'll bet. And if they need a new well house, it seems kind of silly for them to have to go through the permit process to build a new well house.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. We'll look at the residential section and see how we put the verbiage in for
Okay.
the small things like that, which are obviously not impacting anyone.
I'd like to say a few words here. So my name is Chris Brooks. I am the Director of Project Management for MEP Renewables, who I'm sure all of you are very familiar with. We are the largest operator of wind farms in the state of Illinois. We have 5 wind farms currently operating, representing 800 megawatts of wind energy here in the state of Illinois. We operate 45 wind farms throughout the United States. And just wanted to make a couple of comments about the proposed zoning ordinance. The Harvest Ridge Wind Farm was initiated in 2008-2009. We installed some wind measurement towers back then. And since that time, we've leased, in Murdock Township specifically, hundreds of acres of land with landowners who are looking forward to being participants in our project. Out of the 49 total wind turbines that are planned for the Harvest Ridge Wind Farm, 10 of them are planned to be sited in Murdock Township and have been sited in accordance with the Douglas County Wind Energy Ordinance that was established in 2009 and amended in 2010. The wind farm here in Douglas County will bring significant economic benefits to the community. We are looking forward to paying around $2.5 million in property taxes in the first year of operation, and nearly $60 million in property taxes over a 30-year project life. The wind farm will enable farmers to take advantage of another form of income here. There would be in excess of 250 jobs during construction and 8 to 10 permanent jobs at the local operations and maintenance facility. Talking about the Murdock Township ordinance specifically, we do not believe that Murdock Township has the authority to have a zoning ordinance that incorporates siting for wind turbines. Furthermore, the proposed Murdock zoning ordinance contains siting requirements that are vastly outside of widely accepted norms and is discriminatory against wind turbines generally and the Harvest Ridge project specifically. Just to mention a few of the items here, on setbacks, it's proposed that wind turbines should be sited at a minimum of 1/2 mile from non-participants. This is more than 5 times the county requirement. Shadow flicker that I wrote about is proposed that none should be on any non-participant property, which really would make it practically impossible to build a wind farm in Murdock Township. There's a height restriction required of 550 feet when it's widely known that we have purchased wind turbines for the project that will be up to 591 feet of tip height. I would say the most onerous aspect of the zoning ordinance for wind turbines is the sound levels that are proposed. 25 decibels at nighttime would be impossible for any wind turbine to comply with. And then, of course, there's a restriction on the density of the wind turbines, where it states that wind turbines shall be at least 7 rotor diameters away from each other. So in conclusion, we remain available to speak with Murdock Township residents, the Murdock Zoning Committee, or Murdock Township trustees to discuss wind energy and the benefits that the Harvest Ridge project will bring to the community. We do have, as many of you know, our local office in the town of Newman, where we have had an office since July of last year. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any concerns? Yes, sir.
Bill Bozdak, I farm a few hundred acres in the township. Thanks for making me follow the wind farm guy. And I had one big word I was going to use, onerous, and he already used it. So I paged through most of the 162 pages of the ordinance, and I have a few specific questions. On 2.4.5, I'm concerned about the cost of an actual survey that would need to be included in a plot. And I was also concerned on how you would notify someone that it says you will notify the person who made the application. I was wondering how you would do that with a registered letter, or how that process would work. And on 2.5.1, what is a lot number? It said a lot number must be included, and I didn't know what that was. On 2.5.3, it said that you may need a registered engineer or surveyor, and I wondered what that would do to the cost and the timeliness of a project. If you didn't think you needed one, then one was required. On 2.5.6, I wondered about the fee schedule that the township board would set. On 2.5.10, the cost of consultants, and how, I forgot, that'll be one main question at the end. 2.7.6, if you apply for a special use permit and you are not granted it, you have a 1 year before you can resubmit. That seems like quite a long time to try and get a project up and off the ground. On 2.8.7, for some decision of the township board, you need a 3/4 majority. And I thought that would be excessive rather than a simple majority. On 3.2.1, it talks about excessive cost to the township for providing services. And other than plowing snow and maintaining the roads, I can't think of any other services that the township would provide, and they have to plow the road in front of whatever you have up. The one that really bothers me on 3.2.2, it states that you are limited to 50,000 bushels of storage per parcel. And that is only 2 grain bins in this day and age. And I'm not a big farmer, I don't have a big combine, but 50,000 bushel I could fill in about 3 days. So that's not a whole lot of storage. On 4.8.15, talks about the succession and how the zoning board must approve any succession from one operator, I assume of the towers or the wind farm, to the next, and I wanted to make sure that did not apply to the landowners also. And on 4.9.8-E, I believe the word lightning is misspelled, and I just put that in to prove I read most of it. And I have 3 general questions that I would ask the attorney to address. The initial cost of starting the zoning board, cost to the township, and the annual operating cost of that zoning commission. And then I also would like to hear about access to the zoning administrator and what kind of education and license they would need, because there's 162 pages of regulations that some of them definitely need to be interpreted. And number 3, would you please address the process for approval of the ordinance?
I'm gonna let you take that away.
Sure. So the initial cost of the zoning board, typically what a community will do is they'll pay like a per diem per meeting. So in this case, the township board, I think they're paid $60 per meeting. Maybe you pay the zoning board of appeals $30 per meeting per diem. The zoning board of appeals is not going to have to meet that often, just when something comes up. A lot of times they don't even have a monthly regular meeting. Sometimes they'll have a monthly regular meeting, and if there's no business, it'll be canceled. So typically not a lot of expense associated with the operation of the zoning board. With regard to the zoning administrator, again, there are a lot of number of ways that can be handled. A lot of communities will actually contract with the zoning administrator, and they'll just pay him a fee per, permit or whatever the project is. Whether, I don't know what that fee is, but it's usually handled like that. It's not like it's a full-time employee that comes on board with the township and has an office, because there's, just not gonna be, as much to keep that person fully occupied. Obviously, some things, but not everything. The process from here on out is they have this public hearing tonight, get all of the feedback. The zoning commission is going to meet again tomorrow, talk about potential changes, talk about the recommendation and report that they want to make to the township board. If they're ready to do that tomorrow, they will vote on that and pass that along to the township board. The township board, it's going to be on their agenda for Monday. Whether or not they're ready to act on it or not, I don't know, but it'll be on there just in case. And at that point, the township board can either approve the ordinance, or if they've got some issues, they can remand it back to the commission for further evaluation and consideration.
But as far as just an additional startup cost, there's no line budget item that you could guess at or present this to.
No, I think probably the township board will, the most would be the legal fees, and the township board will have to look at, potential budget amendment, maybe, we'll have to consider that. But really, once, the development of the ordinance is completed, then it's just the nominal cost of, whatever those meetings might be for the per diem.
Thank you.
And there are some zoning boards that they don't even collect the per diem, it's just kind of a volunteer job, so, you guys could take a list in here of all the volunteers that want to sign up for that, and maybe save the township even some more money.
Do we have any other questions?
Could you address the 50,000 bushel, or we look at that, or?
We'll look at that. I have no problem addressing it. The way we came up with that, just a quick brief on that, is we just saw that 50,000, we figured there can always be a variance. You can always apply for it on special cases. 50,000 seemed like a decent amount thus far if there was an issue. I mean, when we take the whole zoning ordinance in, there's a lot of information for us to go through and pick through. And since we did kind of adopt a zoning ordinance from Boone County, there were things that we saw no issues with them, so we just kept them in there. We did have some discussions about bushels and what size. I don't remember off the top of my head what they were, but where we settled at 50,000, we just thought that was a reasonable place to start. And that's open for discussion. We'll have that discussion tomorrow. And I mean, if we feel that we need to raise that, we can do so. But once again, there is always the variance process that we can go through, and a variance can be granted, if it's proven that it's needed.
Well, that's kind of my point, is that I believe this is another layer of government that we don't really need.
Okay.
I like the fact that Douglas County doesn't have zoning. I like the fact that Camargo Township doesn't have it. And I like the fact that Newman and Murdock didn't have it. And I don't like the fact that you're doing it, although I do empathize with you and I understand the reasons you're doing it.
I mean, in today's day and age, we really need to protect, the public body, the health, the welfare, the comfort, the property values. In today's day and age, I feel that zoning is very needed and a necessity for the public as a whole. And we tried in this document to be as fair as possible to the masses. And in that process, we're just looking for, public feedback. So I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Yep.
If you can, back to the 50,000 bushels, the reason for it is not to restrict any farmer from putting grain bins on his property. But we recognize that if a farmer comes in and puts, 6 or 8 very large grain bins on his property and he has a neighbor, his neighbor may not appreciate hearing those grain bins run so often. So we simply go that way to say, okay, if you're going to put in something very large, then we'd like you to at least discuss it with your neighbor and with the zoning board to see if there's a good spot to put it where it won't impact your neighbor. If you have no neighbor, it's $25, fill the form, approved, and off you go. If you have a neighbor, he probably wants an opportunity to at least discuss it with you. If you put it on that side of your property, I won't be bothered so much.
My neighbor doesn't pay my mortgage.
That's true, but the sound from your grain bins will be impacting his sleep at night, so.
Well, it's in the regulations that the fans must point away.
Yes.
Yeah.
If there's a house.
And that's the intent of it, is to make two friendly neighbors get along, right? You don't want your sound going onto his property and impacting the value of his property or the quality of his life. So if you don't have a neighbor, it's a non-issue.
All right, thank you.
I mean, I would say, in a kind of response to that, my name's
state
Ed
name?
Carlton.
Thank you.
I do not live in this township, I live in Camargo Township, but I have farm around here, and I'm not really in support of zoning for a lot of areas, but there are reasons I do like zoning. Where I used to live out here on the edge of Douglas County, or edge of Murdock Township, the house is now vacant, and I don't know if it was our deputy here, but one of them was called after a week or so going through a cleanup process, people trying to clean the property up. They found the carcass of a dead horse that was starved, animals in cages, the house abandoned. Zoning would have prevented that, because that wouldn't have existed. They couldn't have lived the way they live, we have zoning in the community. Where I currently live, I have squatters across the river right behind my backyard property line's border. Shooting guns, parties at night, noise, would not exist with zoning. So I do think there are great purposes for zoning, there are purposes for not have zoning. So it's kind of, how do you weigh that out? What do you do? You don't want the cancers to spread amongst the community and have these squatters grow and have properties destroyed by people that don't protect them or don't honor their neighbors. So how do you do that without zoning?
We've learned it's a fine line to walk.
It is, it's a very fine line, it's hard to say.
Yes. Any other questions? Wow.
I have
Yes, Dave.
another point to state in support of the current proposed ordinance. I know there's some concerns about setbacks, and one of them is the amount of ice throw. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. We know two different people that have had personal experiences who live close to the wind turbines, and they've encountered ice throw firsthand. The first couple lives in the California Ridge Wind Farm, north of St. Joe, northeast of Royal area. And the amount of that ice that came off the turbine landed in the road in front of the woman as she was driving home, won't mention any names. And the turbine happened to be located 233 yards from the road. The second couple lives up near Ellsworth. I'm not sure if EDP owns that or operates that wind farm in McLean County. McLean County has a lot of them. And they have picked up large pieces of ice from turbines near them that have traveled in excess of 500 feet. And the turbines are 400 foot from the top to the tip. This couple can also hear the windmills in their home. The home was built in the 1980s from a turbine that is 1,500 feet from their home. They like the idea of wind power, they're very supportive of it, but they found that living next to them is not as nice as they hoped it would be. They're not as non-intrusive as they claim to be. We're not interested in having buildings, cars, or other property animals, or people hit by ice or anything like that. And we are not interested in other people having to listen to them if there haven't been proper setbacks in place. We live in the country because we want to live in the country and not in an industrial park. So there is another point, if I've still got time. Regarding property values, I know that was brought up. People who live near wind farms, in the middle of wind farms, there's definite impact. And it's not positive. We contacted a couple of land appraisers, and they both stated it's a hard thing to prove, but there are on the individual level, there are loss in property values, therefore loss of investments. We haven't found any evidence of actual increased property values, and no evidence of property values staying the same for homes within or near wind farms, though we have found research indicating home values drop based on proximity and size of the turbines. For example, Wisconsin survey, and I know that sounds like a long way away, but they're all have a commonality, living close to proximity to wind farms. When Wisconsin survey of realtors selling property near turbines indicated a negative impact on property values. Properties within a half mile showed a 24% valuation for improved property. Additionally, an Illinois appraiser with over 30 years experience, he's done a lot of research and studies and testimonies on which side, one or the other. For properties close to turbines in Lee and DeKalb counties, average residential property appreciation is 26.4% and an average of 10% diminution for agricultural property, average between Lee and DeKalb properties. However, for a home study in DeKalb, properties were closer to turbines, and the turbines were larger, and the diminution value was greater in the two counties at an average of 32.8%. So you can take statistics or have statistics read whatever you want and prove whatever you want, but the fact that you lose property value and investments in your life savings or whatever you've got is there. I don't really personally, like I said, my wife and I are going to be 2.5 to 3 miles away from it, so it may or may not impact us. But I am also concerned with the rest of, the rights of the rest of the people who live in Murdock Township. And I don't actually see how even a participating landowner or even a developer could argue that this is fair. And one option to protect non-participating landowners is a property value guarantee agreement. And that is to, that's going to be a hard one to prove, but you're going to have appraisers involved. And that would be something if there was a guarantee of the developer. This could also pertain to hog farms, potential industry, and any other aspect that might come in, even the coal mine. Guarantee that the difference in appraised value and sold value could be made up. So I'd like to suggest a property value guarantee agreement in some form.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anyone else have any questions?
One other thing here,
Yes,
and
Alan.
I know we had conversed before when I addressed the issue of tile.
Yes, sir.
Did you guys discuss that further?
Not really. That's all set for tomorrow's meeting for major discussion between the
Okay.
board. This 2-week period was for the public to review and bring it to us, so, we can hear your concerns and address them.
Okay, so I think this is
the
a
best
very
of our
important
ability.
issue. I mean, I really do, and I think it's more far-reaching than you've addressed in the ordinance
Okay,
so far. Because it can take a number of years for a broken tile to affect a non-participant as opposed to a participant, or maybe, it depends on which way the tile's going as to who it's going to affect first. And you've addressed the fact towards the participant, but you haven't addressed the fact towards the non-participant. I think a period of years needs to be a little longer also to address an issue that, some of these issues might take 3 years to come up.
There's-
Expand a little bit?
Huh?
Can you expand a little bit for what you're
For
talking
note-
about?
for note taking?
What you're talking about?
I'm trying to find it.
I
There it is,
think
what I'm talking about. What number is it? I don't remember.
I think it was 3.3.3, number 5, if I
think you're
remember
right. Maybe
correctly.
but I think
I'll look rather quickly here. Yeah. Sorry. Hang with me for just a
that's
second,
okay. I tried to
folks.
find it real quick and I couldn't.
No, that's the septic system, sorry.
487.
487
Yeah.
N. Okay, 487 N.
So agricultural impact mitigation. All impacted agricultural land must be mitigated pursuant to the terms of any agricultural agreements. Furthermore, such remediation shall include measures which repair field tile damage in farm fields and under public roads during construction of the WEX. Applicants, WEX owners, and operators must take steps toward erosion and sediment control and provide remediation when notified to do so by the Murdock Township Board.
So what's your concerns with that?
What page was it on?
121, the very bottom.
121?
121, and then it continues over to 122.
You were right, I didn't see it was 122. Well,
Can we-
so you've left it open-ended then?
Yes, like we discussed,
So
there was,
there's no
there's
period
no
of years
period of
that's covered
years, yes.
Okay.
I thought, did we not discuss that? when I talked.
So maybe, okay, all right, that's good.
Okay, okay. Yes, sir, if you'd please state your name.
Yeah, Larry Easton, I'm on the Murdock, Margo number 2 drainage district. I talked to our drainage attorney today, and Jim Cottrell's his name, and he's gonna draw up what we need, have it recorded in the courthouse for any damages done to our district tiles.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't count the field tiles that run into that, and that's a district tile.
Okay.
And they'll be repaired by our people at their expense,
Okay.
whether they like it or not.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for clearing that up. I appreciate that. Does that make
That's
this?
gonna be a big deal for everyone.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
That's gonna be a big assistance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for clearing that up. Do we have any other questions? Yes, Bob.
I'm Bob Alvin, I live here at my farm, and the question about the storage of the grain.
Yes, sir.
We already have 72,000 bushel of storage.
Yes.
The 50,000 is for new construction.
Yes,
and storage.
You will be grandfathered in. That would be for new construction. So whatever you have on your property stands, you won't be limited to only 50,000. That's if you build a new.
But we could add 50 more if that was,
Yes.
if that
The way I read it, yes.
okay.
Any other questions?
Comments, you mean?
Comments, questions,
Complaints.
complaints?
Praises.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to talk. I don't want to, but, okay, this whole thing sucks.
Can you
okay?
please-
Chuck Ayers?
Thank you.
Yeah, this
And-
whole thing sucks.
Watch your language, please.
Okay.
We gotta keep it very
Like a
simple.
lemon,
Okay?
okay? And I don't like the way everything's turned out. It's turned people against each other. And you guys aren't being fair up here. You went you went full speed ahead, 7-hour meetings, ridiculous stuff that you were trying to do to beat a time limit that probably not gonna keep the turbines out. I don't know, but I think, right now you guys are talking, Lardale's talking about worrying about the tiles. Well, the way this is written, there's not gonna be any turbines in here. For example, he was mentioning the 25 decibel and 35 decibels for the wind farm. Okay, if you put your refrigerator out there, it wouldn't be allowed. It's 55 decibels. Ridiculous stuff.
What kind of refrigerator you got, John?
I got a measurement. I'll bring it to you. Your kitchen has got that one.
Are you an EDP employee right now?
I am, yes.
Okay, why don't you make that clear to everybody?
Why? I mean, I'm not an employee. I'm an independent contractor. How's that?
And just keep the comments
You guys
to the
keep
board.
keep it to us, please.
And everybody will have an opportunity to say something, but. go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. And I'm not sure where I was going with that, but the one thing I wanted to mention was the decibels. That's ridiculous. The zoning, you guys worked your butts off. I understand that.
We did.
But I'm afraid what's going to be left is all the zoning. You're going to end up with the turbines and all the zoning. And that's the worst case scenario.
I don't see how that's the worst case scenario, but I appreciate your
Well,
concern.
I
do
think
appreciate your
most of the
concern.
farmers here are not loving the idea of zoning. And also, one more thing, you need to change the way you post meetings. You do 3 things. You put it on a tree in Longview, you put it on the thing here, and then you put it in the post office. That's the only way they would know that it existed on the Newman Township board. You needed to put it in 3 newspapers in the area. That would have got it out. I know what the
That's not the state-
regulations
that's
say.
not the state
Regulations
statute.
need to be changed. That's
And
it. I'm done.
thank you very much for your concerns. I appreciate that. Do we have any more questions or concerns or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Renee Wagner, and I would just like to say, I appreciate the zoning because I have put a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of sweat into my home. And to have the property depreciate because of these turbines just drives me insane.
Thank you.
Can I comment again?
Yes?
Okay.
You need to address us, please.
Chuck Ayers again. Okay, I did my due diligence and I went to several wind farms. White County, Indiana, Benton County, Indiana, together there's about 1,000 wind farms up there with turbines. Okay, Benton County, you can go to the Benton County office and go to the office there and they will show you the property values, how they've done since the turbines have been there. Property values have gone up slightly, basically no decline, no effect. So, and that's the county telling you that, not some appraiser.
Okay, thank you.
That's because the county doesn't want to take.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Yes, Bob.
My name is Bob Alvin. I live 5 miles north here in Murdock Township, and we plan on putting up a building for seed storage and machinery storage. And frankly, I'm glad we've got the zoning, and I'm more than happy to work with whoever's on the zoning board to make sure that the building I put up complies with all your ordinances if the ordinance passes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Any questions? Yes, Mary.
Well, my name is Mary Pritchard. I've probably lived in Murdock Township for most of my life. Got a few concerns, really several. First of all, we need zoning. We don't, it's been like in Douglas County, Murdock and Newman Townships are the dumping ground of Douglas County. We've got coal mines, we've got, I hope, never a landfill here. We need zoning for our health, safety, and protection of all of us, and for our real estate values. We've got a county board that had a wind ordinance over 10 years old. Who does that to the constituents of your county? If you care, you don't. Or if you have EDPR come into the county and they offer something like this, time out, the county board should say, we got to look at our wind ordinance again. We have to look at it for the people in our county. And all the times that I've been going to the meetings and the ones I've watched on video, Jim Allen, a couple months ago, stood up and said, where do we hear that you care about the life, safety, and welfare of the residents in Douglas County? The gavel went down and there was no comment. In all of my days that I've gone to the Platten planning meetings and the Douglas County meetings, no one has said, you're wrong about that, we do care about you. That's never happened. All of you that have gone to those meetings know that. Why would there be a private meetings of just landowners and EDPR and our county board at the VFW about a year and a half ago? If it's such a good thing, open it up to everybody. Tell us how great it's going to be, not have a private meeting. And you had to be invited. I'm not even sure that's legal. And I know at one time, Don Munson said he was worried about the liability. They need to be worrying about the neglect of all of us in Murdock and Newman Township. You're going to put up a 590-foot turbine. Do you have those in other wind farms right now?
Mary, if you can please address the board.
Okay, do you have those? I don't know that those are in any other wind farms at this time. The Gateway Arch is what? 610, 630. Those are huge. Those are huge. I'm worried about ice throw, about fire in a dry cornfield, cane field. I'm concerned about the life safety of my neighbors and everyone else. I refuse to sign the good neighbor agreement and have that on my record in order to speak and be truthful supposedly about EDP. Real estate values. I have been to a wind farm in Vermilion County last summer. Vacant homes that have been for sale for years because nobody's gonna buy them. They're right there in a wind farm. And yes, there is shadow flicker, and there's other health issues with it. Sarah gave a great report to the county board. 1 in 3 children are affected by the flicker that is given off by a huge turbine. You don't think about that every day, but it's the truth. And she had documentation to back it. And so did Paul Freebairn with all of his information. I want the county board and the commissioners here, please take this seriously. When these things go up, they are up for decades. Unless, of course, the federal subsidies, or President Trump says, no more, they're coming down in 5 or 10 years. Who's going to pay for that? Decommissioning. Is our county going to do that? We as taxpayers have already paid for these federal funds that went out of our country, come back in here. It's the biggest sham in the world. Some people are going to get paid for it. Some people have got a contract for a turbine that's $15,000. I heard somebody else had one twice that amount. I don't know that there's consistency here. So I'm worried about life safety, real estate, and decommissioning, which is going to be huge.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sherry Ellis, I'm a landowner. I came to this to listen about zoning, and I want to know, is this a zoning meeting or is this an anti-wind meeting?
No.
Because everything I've heard mostly is anti-wind, and it should be zoning, because there are some serious things in the zoning package that you guys are going to pass. That's my comment.
Thank you for your concerns. This is a zoning meeting.
Doesn't sound like it.
Yes, sir.
I just want to point out, everybody that's been involved, whether they're on one side or the other, I just want to point out to the zoning board, please take everything that's, I mean, you are taking it seriously, but to really deep dive maybe on some of the points in the building industry. I've seen Champaign and Urbana go down because of certain things. I just don't want to see us get so tight, we maybe lose something for, just residential all the way to commercial.
Yes.
But I want to tell you guys, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'm Jerry Walsh. I don't want to see another recon tech like that. I saw the plans early on, and there was things that scared me to death. And now it's closed. And it's a mess. I walked through it after it closed down. It's scary. So I don't want to have another company like that come in and be able to walk away from it.
And thank you. Any other questions? If we don't have any other questions,
Yeah, then you can close the public hearing. And unless there's any, comments that the...
please, you guys, this is your time. Please do not be afraid to stand up and talk. Yes, Steve.
My name is Steve Pritchard. I'm a resident of Murdock, and I am potentially going to be in the shadow of my neighbor's wind turbine that he is so graciously going to provide us. And I don't want my real estate value completely trashed because nobody will ever buy my house again. It'll have to sit there forever. I don't want to hear the shadow. I don't want to hear the noise of the turbine. I don't want to be affected by the shadow flicker or any of it or the light problems. But I said, nobody has tried to protect us. Our county is wide open. And you people are the only ones that have stood up for our rights. And I so appreciate it.
Thank you. This is your time to be heard, so please speak. If there's something that needs to be talked about, we would appreciate listening to it.
Hey, Eric, Alan Bender again.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate what you guys have done. You forced me to research further myself. And restrictions on wind turbines, I thought, oh wow, where did all these regulations come from? I went way back. Oh, most of these regulations were formulated by wind turbine companies because nobody had any regulations to regulate wind turbines. Now, well, let's go one step further back. Where have they been longer? Would you say Europe? That's where I would say. So I went. Germany, Norway, Austria, I think there was a Slovakian, there was a Yugoslavian. Their distance between wind turbines is restricted from 3,000 to 6,000 meters. So I would say our wind turbine regulations are pretty darn close together. So that's just a comment and something that I've learned over the last 4 months of my research. And I'm sure there are probably a lot of people that won't understand that. But just go do a Google search for European wind farms and find out what you get. Their shadow flicker is controlled by the hours that the sun shadows a specific house. That wind turbine is shut down during this period of shadow flicker. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But anyway, I'm saying there's where the controls have come about because these are the people that have learned about wind turbines. So I think our regulations are probably pretty doggone lenient.
Thank you, Alan.
And just if I could comment on that, Chairman, I think what this board also is looking for is, you've heard a lot of comments on some of the wind farms, but, what is the reaction to those regulations that are being proposed? And, we've had some of that tonight, but those specifics, are, I think, certainly helpful for this board to consider.
Ed Carls again, and I think, I would agree, I do think the wind turbine has what's kind of motivated the zoning to come in place. And I know there is going to be costs to the county or the township or whatever, but much of these costs could have been avoided if like 8 or 9 years ago, EDP would have came to, or other companies would have came to the township that's affected and said, how can we work with you rather than going to our county where meetings are not posted very well again as either. Where do you find out what's on the county agenda without, how do you find out? They don't put it in the newspapers. How do we know that EDP is negotiating with the county 8, 9 years ago? We didn't have a clue. So this kind of snuck up on us blindsided, and now we're forced to put something in to protect ourselves. So if they came to us initially, this might have all worked out for everybody.
Thank you.
Make a comment there.
Yes.
I just want to point out that we got together as a group, and the very first thing we talked about, this is not a windmill ordinance. This is zoning. There's 5 chapters in here. One of them is about windmills. Only the county page 192. This is not a pro-windmill. This is not an anti-windmill. This is zoning. 100% zoning. Windmill happens to be a part of that. But we did not, as a group, sit down and go anti-windmill. We're going to write an anti-windmill policy. We did not do that. We specifically decided not to do that. That we're being unfair to everyone involved.
Like I said, if there's nothing else, then I think you close the public hearing and then motion to adjourn. As we said, there will be another meeting of the zoning board tomorrow at what time?
At 2 p.m.
At 2 p.m.?
Yes.
Where they will kind of consider all the comments. They could make some additional modifications as they kind of finalize. and button up this ordinance before they send it with a recommendation to the township board.
I have one last thing. They spent 20 hours on this ordinance.
Me.
Your name?
Sorry, Sarah Andrews. I was at most meetings. They spent 20 hours on the ordinance total. And I can tell you that on Wex was 2 hours out of that 20.
Eric, one more. I think we all know that at one time there was a landfill near Villa Grove. You talked about a landfill possibly in Murdock Township. And for those who may not remember or don't know about it, it turned into a real mess that the EPA had to clean up. And it was a huge cost to the state. And without any county-wide zoning, they were allowed to bring in garbage from Chicago that included hazardous waste. And the person operating it paid a lot of money and walked away without paying anything to clean it up. And we all, in our taxes, paid from that.
And there,
Maybe this zoning can prevent something like that in our township.
do we have any other concerns, comments?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I want to make sure everyone has the fair chance to speak here. If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Best would
Eric
you?
Andreessen,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Devin McCumber,
Yes.
Greg Wagner,
Yes.
Caitlin Washburn. Motion passes.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. Caitlin, thank you so much.